Okay, I'm trying Mirantis software for Mirantis LaunchPad for setting up my Docker E cluster. So I have already downloaded that tool, and you can see it's downloaded here, Launchpad when x64.exe. You can visit Launchpad, Mirantis website, sign up there for using Docker EE and download this tool. After that, you have got this Mirantis GitHub repository from where you can find all the instructions on how to set up your cluster. I'm going to follow these instructions now and set up my own cluster. You will see even this URL is there, which you can use for signing up with Mirantis for Docker E trial account. I have already downloaded this Launchpad, and right now it's version 0.13 that I'm using right now here. Sorry. Okay. So I will just use the same name instead of using this renamed one. So very first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to register. So launchpad register command, and when it asks me for the name, I'll enter my name, which is Mahendra Shinde. I'll enter my email address. Now this is the same email address that I have used for sign up at Mirantis. Name. Do you agree to the license terms? I'll say yes. Registration is complete. So after you provide the registration details, you will see registration is complete now. We now need the cluster in configuration file. Now when I say cluster configuration file, it's simple YAML file that will define what kind of cluster we expect and what component we expect, what we expect to be username or password. You will see a sample YAML file which is written over there, and you will have to actually accordingly make changes. Please remember, in case if you are planning to deploy it on local machine or on cloud machine, you will have to make sure that whatever machine you have provisioned, you have access to that machine over SSH. Like this one is using SSH configuration. These are two IP addresses of two different machines that I'll be using. I have an option of creating these machines either on my Azure cloud, or I can set it up directly on my local machine using Hyper-V VM as well. But as you know, Hyper-V VM, creating Hyper-V VM will take time. So what I will do is I will instead create these servers directly on my Azure VM. So I will create two Linux VMs for that matter, and I'll connect them like this. Okay. And you will see the document and everything right there. I'll do one thing, I'll just open another PowerShell prompt. Okay, and I'm planning to keep all my settings here in my D drive. So D git, and I'm planning to keep all the configuration here in this repository so that it should be easier to get those values back, or I can reuse the same configuration later on again. Fine, that's great. I'll open this in VS Code now, and this is where I'm going to download all those artifacts, the configuration file. Wait a second, I just opened a wrong project folder. Open folder, and folder I want to open this time is wait a second, I just forgot what folder I have imported just now. Yeah, it was launchpad config. Okay. So what I'm planning to do is I'm planning to explore all the options right now, and I will have to make sure that I use this launchpad configuration here. I'll download the YAML file. This is cluster.yaml file available right there. You can see this is a complete file, and this cluster.yaml file, Docker Enterprise Launchpad UCP, and first host name is manager, user root, port 22, and key path, private interface name, HTTP proxy. There is no proxy actually. We don't actually need any proxy right now. Then engine config, debug, log values, address. This is a worker node. Okay, then this is another worker node. This is another node who will be playing trusted registry, who will be used for trusted registry. This one is the UCP details. UCP we want right now is version 3.3.0. Image repository we want to use is docker.io/docker. Admin username that we want right now is admin, password, and all these details. I'll do one thing, I'll just copy this file and I will have to make sure that I make changes to this file properly. So here we go, just copy this and I'm going to paste it here. I'll call this file as cluster.yaml and here it is, cluster.yaml file. So this is going to be a Docker Enterprise Launchpad UCP. Host IP addresses, you can see I have given all the host IP addresses. Now these values obviously I have allowed to change. So let me check how many hosts are there. There is one manager node with username, password, and port, private interface. Then okay, DTR. This is for UCP, Docker.io, admin username and password, license file, Docker Enterprise license. Let me check if the license file is downloaded right now. dir**.lic. Yeah, Docker Enterprise license. I already have the license file here, but it looks like this is a very old license file which I downloaded couple of, not couple, yeah, it's almost 1 year old. Okay. So we will create the configuration file. We will have to update these values anyways. UCP version, install flag, default, cloud provider. Wait a second. What is the cloud provider value I'm using right now? Provider is Azure, config file is cloudprovider.conf, and region we need to provide. I will update all those values, no worries. Okay, let's see. So create the config. I can instead look at this basic configuration file which will install this thing, manager and worker. This is for VirtualBox environment, and then apply. Okay, fine. I will use the basic basic one. Let me download this and I will use this file here with, of course, few changes I need, like what could be the username and what could be the password. I'll keep the same values, or else I can change the values if I want. Default node orchestrator, I want Kubernetes, that's fine. I need IP addresses for these two machines. Fine, let me just quickly populate those machines. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the SSH key value pair or SSH key pair for both of them. So here I go, I'll just mount it to my D drive. Sorry, cd mnt d, and from the D drive mkdir, sorry, not D, it's in git, and then from inside git, what I will do is from inside git I'll go to this launchpad config and then inside launchpad config I'm going to create a folder .ssh, and now inside this SSH I'm going to generate the SSH key pair, SSH keygen, and I'm going to create here in SSH keygen I'm going to generate the SSH key pair. Let me check the help system here. Okay, I will be using default format only. I will just use -f to provide the output folder name. So -f, I want to use present working directory /.ssh. So that will do the job. It will generate the SSH key pair. Okay, and you will see here, I made a mistake. The -f parameter here requires the key file. So I'm supposed to provide the key name, not the folder name. So ssh/id_rsa, and when I press enter, okay, it's creating public private RSA key pair. Is there any passphrase required? I don't want any passphrase. And the key is generated now. I will now just SSH and get into the SSH folder, and I'll check how many files are there. Now there is IDRSA and IDRSA pub. Both the files are there in this SSH folder now. And I'm going to use this now for deploying my Azure VMs. So it's time for launching Azure portal now, portal.azure.com. And from portal.azure.com, I will log in into with my credentials here. I'm now on Azure portal. I'll be creating a resource group with 2 virtual machines now. And as per this, I'll be using a virtual machines. Both the virtual machines are going to be Linux with SSH key pair. So create a resource, and I'm going to create a resource group with 2 virtual machines. So resource group, I'll call it as Docker CE, Docker EE resource group with Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia. Tags, I don't want any. Review and create. This will create the resource group, and inside this resource group I am going to create the VM now. Ubuntu Server 18. Wait a second. And resource group, now I am going to select the Docker EE resource group, and virtual machine name I am going to provide here is, first is going to be a manager node. And wait a second, why it's not showing me the image name? Southeast Asia is right. Okay, Docker EE is the virtual machine resource group. I'll just reload this page. Wait a second. Create a resource. Yeah, I'm connected to internet. Ubuntu Server 18, and resource group Docker EE. Virtual machine name is manager node, no infrastructure, Ubuntu, and this is the size we have selected, standard H2, and I'm going to use public key pair. My username is going to be Mahendra, and instead of generating the key pair, I'm going to use the existing key stored, using existing public key. I'm going to just copy paste the public key now. So what I'll do is I'll just open the public key ID RSA. Let's copy the key and paste it here. That's my public key, by the way. You will see this is my username in here, Mahendra. Okay. SSH is the only port right now which is open, and this is going to use standard HDD. Rest everything is fine. Virtual network, a new network will be created here with an IP address as well. That's fine with me. Next, for management, I do not want boot diagnostic. or I can just keep it with manage storage. That's fine. I don't want auto shutdown right now. I will shut it down whenever I want. I don't want any tags, and create. Similarly, I am going to create another virtual machine as well after this one is created. What I need to do is, after this VM is created, I will have to verify whether VM is created successfully by trying to SSH into it. So I'll close this and I'll create another VM now with the similar setup. So again, the same resource group, Docker EE virtual machine name, this time is worker. Okay, so I've created the manager one. Now I'll be creating a worker now. And for this worker, I'm going to use the same configuration here. SSH key pair, username is Mahendra, and key pair I'm going to use here is this public key. Let me just change the comment part of it. I don't want that Mahendra@Mahindra PC. I just want Mahendra. And disk, I'm going to choose standard HDD. Next, networking automatically will be selected. It will be in the same network as the others. Management, the same option, and create. So very soon I will have 2 VMs ready. Okay, looks like one virtual machine is already ready. This one. I'll just quickly check the connectivity with this manager machine. And in order to do that, what I'm planning to do is I'm planning to use its public IP directly. I'll copy this public IP, and very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to update it in here. That's my public IP. Host key path here is ID underscore RAC, ID underscore RAC. So that's the file path I'm using right now. Obviously, this IP address also I need to update. So this is manager machine, and let me try SSH into manager machine by simply using this approach folder, which is in my WSL home directory, and here I'll check their keys .ssh2 ls-l. Okay, now let's try chmod 600 on the file. Yeah, this is what was expected actually. I was supposed to not have read permission on that file, but in WSL it's not possible when you are on Windows file system. I can now try my SSH command easily. So this is the SSH command, and I'm trying to enter inside my manager node now, and I'm able to do that. So I'm able to get inside the manager node right now. Just for a practice purpose, I'll try sudo apt update -y, and meanwhile I'll go and check whether the other node is also up and running. The other node that I created was worker node, and I should be able to log in into this worker node equally good with this IP address of it. This I will copy, and I'll just update that IP address here using editor. Here it is. Where is the IP address? This one, right? So let me use this IP address here. Unfortunately for me, I won't be able to run all this thing from this command line, so I will have to somehow run it from, anyway, I'll try to run it from here and check if it is possible to run it like this. It is right now in the current folder, so I'll just write ssh/idrsa. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, this is done. I was able to log in into manager node, so I will now try if I can log in into the worker node as well. This is a worker node, and yeah. Oh no, this is IP address of manager only. I am using a wrong one. Where is the manager node? That's the manager one. Okay, let me check. Whereas my virtual machines. Okay, it looks like my manager node is not created at all. It's not ready for some reason. Did I cancel it at the last moment? I don't know. Let me try creating it again. Start. and I'll be using Docker EE group. I'll call it worker. All other settings are same. Username is going to be my name, Mahindra. SSH key pair, I'm using this public key pair. So let's just open the public key once again. That's my public key. And I'm going to use this public key here, minus this @ part. You can edit it easily, don't worry. And I'm going to use SSD, no, HDD. Networking, I will use the default options. For management, I'm going to switch off this auto shutdown mode. No advanced settings, review create, and then create. Yeah, I closed this panel last time when I launched it. That's why the overall deployment was cancelled kind of. Fine. I will have to now anyways wait for the deployment to complete. And once my VM is ready, once my VM is deployed, I will then use the command line launchpad apply to start installing Docker EE in these two machines. Okay, I'll take a break for now. Okay, it's already started now. I'll just use this IP address to connect now. So let's get back here, exit this. But is it recording right now? Yeah. Okay, I will now connect a different machine, a worker node. That's the worker node's IP address. I'll say yes, accept the fingerprints. And I'm now inside this machine here. I will also do sudo apt update here to make sure that it's updated properly. No need of doing this. Anyway, the setup script will do all that automatically on my behalf. Done already. Wait a second, I wanted to just make some changes here in IDRSA dot public key. I don't want this Mahindra @. Sorry, it's better not to edit this file anyways. Okay, done. Now it's time for us to go back to this command prompt and do the apply command. But let me just do a last point verification. The IP address, unfortunately, I'm using the same one. So worker and manager, two nodes. And this is going to be my admin username and password, and default node orchestrator I'm going to use is Kubernetes. So this is what I'm going to install, by the way, the UCP and the host. UCP is Universal Control Plane, a component of Docker EE. Okay, let's try. Launchpad, apply. There would be a problem. I don't have the YAML file at the right place right now. So I'll do one thing. I will just set the path variable, or I'll just copy this exe directly. Let's copy the launchpad exe file into my D drive, git, and then launchpad config. Okay. Git launchpad config. I'm going to copy it there. Okay. File copied. Let's go to the D drive, git launchpad config, and here I'll use launchpad apply. Wait a second, why is this now? Okay, looks like it's not allowing me to do this. I'm getting an access denied error. Let me check. Okay. Looks like I have to do the launchpad registration again. Register dir. Okay. Looks like somehow I have changed the file permissions here for this launchpad. I'll then do one thing. I'll use Launchpad from its original path. Download Launchpad and then apply. This will make sure that it will use Launchpad from the downloads folder. Okay, looks like Launchpad has started implementing it. This is the Mirantis logo you can see here, and now Mirantis is trying to open the SSH, opening SSH connection for both the machine, testing the connection. Both the connections are opened. Now it's going to gather the facts. Okay, it's going to check what is the configuration of the machine. It will do the installation part basically. Now this process is going to be very time consuming. It will take much longer time for it to initialize it. Okay, and yeah, nothing else. I just have to wait and watch. Okay, it's saying the user login should be Mahindra instead of root. Okay, fine. It looks like I need to change something in here. I need to change this value or update it to use Mahindra username instead of root username. This is probably trying to use username root. So I will change that. I'll provide here, wait a second, for SSH configuration, user, okay, username I need to provide for SSH. User Mahindra, and here also I'll say user Mahindra. So that way I will be providing the username. What was actually happening is it was trying, the default script was trying to log in into those servers with username root, and it didn't work that way. So I know that now. I will just try applying it once again. Yeah, SSH connection is done. It's now able to log in using username Mahindra, and now it has started installing the base packages, the prerequisites whichever are required. Okay. Okay, it's even able to get the IP address, the private IP address of the machine. It's now going to download and install the basic packages. Okay. Okay, looks like one of the system has done, worker system has done installing the base packages now, and I can see Docker E engine is getting installed in both the machines now on master node, which is 175, and worker node 234. Both the machines are at the same time we are installing Docker engine. Please remember, this is not the same Docker that you install manually. This is Docker EE, Docker Enterprise Edition, that we are installing through this script, of course. Okay. The Docker EE version that it is trying to install right now is 1903.8, and the entire setup script simply uses SSH for doing all this setup. You might have probably heard about infrastructure automation tools like Ansible or Terraform. It's more like that. There you just have to provide the remote server details like connection details like the DNS or IP address to reach your server, and user credentials. And with only this much amount of information, this Mirantis bootstrapping tool will simply download and install all the required softwares there. Yeah, it looks like it has done Docker installation, and it has also verified the install version of Docker engine. It's now downloading the UCP images. UCP is Universal Control Plane, which is basically the very important component of Docker EE environment. It actually provides you a very nice web-based user interface that allows you to log in into your remote Docker EE instance, and you can manage everything from there. It's a very nice web UI, by the way. You will see all the images are getting downloaded right now from Mirantis container registry, UCP authentication, Calio, then IP allocator, and others. The cloud-based VM, choosing cloud-based VM has another benefit. It will actually run much faster. The bootstrapping will take considerably lesser amount of time when it is installing everything on cloud-based VM. Reason being, all these cloud-based VMs, they are using the internet backend from the cloud vendor, which provides extremely fast internet connectivity to them. Whereas if you try to install it on your local machine, it's going to take a lot of time because the single machine internet connection or CPU, RAM, storage, everything will be shared by all those systems. All the required container images are getting downloaded, and you can see the IP address is also printed over there. Right now you can see UCP is basically a manager component, and therefore it is installed only on the manager node, that is IP address 175. Let's see. It's also installing HTO, as you can see now. Okay, now configuring the Kubernetes support for Docker Compose file. So with kube compose component, you should be able to deploy your Docker Compose YAML files on Kubernetes cluster as well. Okay, Swarm cluster setup is done. Okay, so UCP is now set up. Now it's going to initialize the Swarm. So Swarm is the container orchestrator engine which is built into Docker EE and even Docker CE for that matter, and it is initialized now. Okay, downloading UCP is over. Now it's going to set up UCP or install UCP components. Let's see how much time it takes. Okay, is compatible? Yes. UCP component has to be compatible with your Docker EE version. So it is compatible. Fine. Container images are already pulled, so this should not take much time. Okay. Generated some self-signed CS certificates for TLS support, initializing the database table. Okay, rethink DB it's using. Initial configuration is an etcd. Okay, authentication API server setup, worker server setup. Okay, Swarm manager server, internal client CS server, UCP controller server. Okay, there are a few more components to be installed now. We'll just wait for them to complete. There are total 38 components it has to install or configure. Okay, it looks like it is now deploying the Kubernetes components. Deploying kubelet. Once the deployment is over, I should be able to access that cluster and even its UCP port directly uh, from my Linux machine. Meanwhile, I'll just go back and I'll open certain ports for the UCP access. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the manager node, and on the manager node, I'm going to open certain ports now. I can see my manager instance is running fine. We will have to then download the admin client, okay, using this command. I'll show you later how to do that. Meanwhile, I'll just have to open certain port on manager. So I'll go to networking and I'll open a port here. Other than port 22, I need port 443 as well, the HTTPS port. So I'll open port for HTTPS access. So this is going to be my UCP port. Okay, I can do that anytime actually, but I thought like it's taking up a time, so I should use that time to prepare everything. So this is it. Once the port is configured, you can use this configured port to access it now from here. Let me check. https:// and the IP address, and when you press enter, it will try to reach that UCP control process. It's not installed right now, so it's going to fail anyways. Okay. Labeling node is done. Oh wow, my cluster is now ready, it looks like, and you can see the admin UI URL is also displayed for me. Okay. This is expected actually because we are using self-signed certificates, so browser is going to raise an error. You will have to use accept the risk and continue to inform your browser that it's okay. I'm okay that this is not a properly signed certificate, but I'm okay with that. I will have to now provide the admin username and password, and that username and password you will have to take it from here. So this is the admin username and this is my password. Let me enter the password here, and when I click sign in, this will take me to the Docker Enterprise. You will see here there are two options. Either you upload the license now or you can get the free trial. So right now we don't have a license right now, so I will use free trial. Let's see where it takes me. Docker EE Enterprise. Okay, the link is expired now. Fine, no issues. What I'll do is I'll do skip for now. So this is a universal control plane now, and license information not found, only for evaluation purpose. That's fine. So for evaluation purpose anyway it's free, so I will be just doing the evaluation part. You will see right now I have got only one manager node. My manager node is ready. This is the overall dashboard. You can see the Kubernetes settings as well, Swarm settings as well, and everything will be there. You can even set up access control, RBAC control for your users and number of users and number of rules. Right now there is only one active user, which is admin, which I just use now to log in into UCP. But otherwise you can use some other usernames you can create. You can use the create button here. Shared resources, you can see the collections. Right now we are using Swarm, and you can see the services, containers, networks, etc. Everything will appear here. This is the same thing. Right now nothing is deployed. You can go to Kubernetes and you can create a new Kubernetes service also here. You just have to create the Kubernetes YAML file and just copy paste it here, or just upload it from here if you have a locally configured Kubernetes file available. I'll try this. I will go with upload a YAML file, and I have recently created several Kubernetes demos, so I will just use one of the demos here. Wait a second, I'll use a demo where I have the entire service created. Yeah, this is my deploy app and this is my service. So I will just deploy this one first. This is a deployment file. You can see this is a sample Kubernetes deployment. I'm going to add it to the default namespace. So create. Okay, this will launch my application with replica set and deployment object both. I'll use another create button, and I'm going to now deploy the YAML file for service as well, service YAML file. This is my service YAML file, and it's going to be listening on port 8080, target port 80, and this is the selector create. So two components I'm deploying right now. So these are the two services. This is going to be my second service. Let's check the controller. Yes, it's fast, it's done. This is the deployment object. You can see there are 3 replicas which are already ready. Okay, all my instances are ready, it looks like. I'll go back to my services now, and this is my app1 service. You can see the cluster IP and the service detail. There are no labels, however, and there are no events. Fine, no issues. Let me just go back, and this was the load balancer service, but unfortunately we do not have or we can't right now use load balancer type service here. We will have to configure it outside. Anyways, I have got the node port which I can try basically. Node port is basically a service port available in what do you call it, in Kubernetes, that allow you to access a Kubernetes service from available port, but it's actually requires little more configuration. I'll tell you. I will have to configure my Azure NSG also to allow this particular port. I'll do one thing. I'll go to the networking part, and I'll open some inbound ports. I'm going to open ports in range 30,000 to 39,000. Okay, future safe kind of. Priority 4,000, and these are port for K8s services. Okay. Once this rule is added, we will be able to access my application from there now. Just have to wait for the security rule. Okay, that's great. Security rule created, and now I can just refresh this. The security rule allows me to use any port between range 30,000 to 39,000. Let me check once again. Is the port number valid? Yeah, label is app1. I will have to compare that with controller here. Yeah, app1, and this was the replica set, app1, and there were 3 pods running. I can see them here. I can see their IP address range as well. Okay, 3 of them currently running. These are the pods, and label says app1. Okay, fine. That's the label only that need to be matching. Yeah, you can see here this is the output. By the way, this is a service load balancer type service. So I can show you one thing, like what if I open this in new private browser window. Okay, this is being served by a different pod, and this is being served by a different pod, 66 and 71. So that means, in short, my cluster setup is complete, and I have provisioned Docker EE, the evaluation version Docker EE, by the way, successfully onto my Azure VM. So I will stop here now. Thank you.